During the Arab Spring, an outspoken lesbian in Syria risked her personal safety to start a blog that went viral.
But Gay Girl in Damascus wasn't quite what it seemed.
No, it was much, much worse. We're doing a full recap of Gay Girl Gone on this episode of So Much Crime.
So little time.
Jeff, you know the way you spent so much time and effort and probably money on getting qualified and degrees in poetry and creative writing?
Sure, yeah.
And while you were pondering over thoughts or edits or,
Line breaks.
all of this writing. Yeah.
Similes.
Yeah, and you're pausing to look up into the sky and to find some sort of muse or idea to move on to that next line. Figure out what that next word is you need to say. Do you know what a better use of your time might actually be?
I think you're going to tell me.
Yeah, it'll be patreon.com/so much crime, so little time. Because not only will you get bonus content like outtakes and more time machines, it's also completely revamped. So even if you've been there before, Jeff, ignore that. Wipe that from your mind. You don't know. You don't know until you go there again, because now there is exclusive swag like t-shirts from our show, and also you will get the warm and fuzzies from supporting our fabulous tiny little show, and we will thank you once again. And I might stop slagging you, Jeff, if you do that. We shall see. No promises.
Then we wouldn't have a show.
This is true. Welcome to So Much Crime, So Little Time. I'm Dee.
And I'm Jeff. And before we start, just a quick warning.
Warning.
This episode is going to have spoilers for Gay Girl Gone. We're going to discuss the whole series.
If you haven't listened yet, check out our preview episode on this show. It's the one before this one in your feed.
You'll also find a link for Gay Girl Gone in our show notes.
Alrighty, let's do a quick recap of what we covered in the preview episode and what we heard about in episode 1. So this show was released in 2023. The host is Samira Mohyeddin. There's 6 episodes in total. First 5 are 30 minutes, but the last one is just under an hour long. Jeff, give us a quick rundown of what we actually covered and what we heard about in episode 1. It's a lot, so keep it nice and short. So she says.
So she says. All right, yeah. In our preview episode, we talked about episode 1. In that episode, we kind of learned what was going on in the Arab Spring in early 2011. And about this blog called Gay Girl in Damascus, started by this person named Amina Arraf. Amina also started an online relationship that same year with someone named Sandra Bagaria. She was a woman in Montreal in Quebec. In the first episode, the other person we met was Danny. He was a gay man living in Damascus, and he and his friends were following Amina's blog. By the end of that episode, we heard what sounded like Amina about to get arrested by the Syrian police. And yeah, we kind of left it on a cliffhanger there. That was end of episode 1. We listened to 5 more episodes, Dee. Where shall we start?
Not with Amina, or he who shall not be named is how I'm going to refer to him, because I refuse to use his name in this episode, because maybe that's where we'll start. Why was he given so much time in the media afterwards, but also throughout the episode? Like, I felt like, I went in harder than I thought I would. I loved this podcast, is what I will start off by saying.
Okay.
It was very clear that the line was, the media at the time gave your man, that's how he will be referred to by me. They gave your man, who was claiming to be Amina, too much airtime. And a part of me felt he was given too much of it again here.
Yeah, I also love this podcast. I thought it was very well done. I don't think he was given, I feel like you would say he was given too much time if he was given any time, because he deserves no time. He deserves no attention. But what I will say is what I really appreciated was how much time was given to people like Danny and Sandra.
Yeah.
Because those are the real heroes of this story. And they were given a lot of space. And I thought that was terrific. I really appreciated that both were so kind of available and accessible to this podcast. I thought that this production was very strong all around. Yeah, I mean, we should talk about this. So the person you don't want to name, the person who was writing the blog as Amina.
Your man.
Yeah.
You're not going to call him your man.
Turned out to be a straight white man from Georgia.
Shocker.
Yeah. I do want to say the fun irony of the fact that we learned that he wasn't the only straight white man pretending to be someone like this, but he even got caught up talking to another one who he thought was another woman and was another straight white man, I think this time from Ohio. There's a little bit of justice in that, but other than that, this man did not really face any serious consequences, it seemed, for what he did.
Didn't face any serious consequences. He's fucking put up on a pedestal after he did this. He faced the opposite of serious consequences. He was, in fact, praised without being praised for this because fame or, I don't know, celebrity or what. Like, he's speaking in universities around the place. Maybe he was doing that before. I don't know. But his name started to be known. Media outlets, like his wife, I don't like to judge the wife of a man who is having a very, very intimate on any sort of relationship with someone else, like outside of the marriage, when the wife doesn't know. I don't want to judge the wife for that at all. That's not usually what I would do. I think that is very clear in the 140 odd episodes we've done here.
Sure.
However, I will say I thought it was interesting, this image that was put in our head of his wife Britta walking around organizing all of his media interviews. Hello, he's going to be a second. Will you wait for 5 minutes? He's going to be a minute. This is wild to me. Like, this is wild. He's become in demand and he loves it.
Yeah.
He's sitting there with his shirt kind of open. Do you need money? Do you need money? That was such a weird, it was disgusting. It was disgusting.
It was disgusting.
Danny has to leave his country. Sorry.
No, I don't feel like I should try to take over this conversation.
I mean,
if ever. I don't know. Do I want to do? Okay. Speaking as a straight white man with a background in creative writing.
How many times have you imitated a woman online and then created so many different versions of her until you were able to get another woman in a relationship with you for 6 months and then was like, oh, I better get out of this one, so I'm going to claim that I've been abducted by a terrorist organization? Presumably only a handful of times?
Okay, we'll talk about me in a second. But he mentioned when Sandra confronted him that he thought that the relationship with her would end quickly because he started conversations with us, he said, like 30 or so times with other people, and they all sort of like fizzled out, and this one just kept going.
It was like he was putting the blame on her.
Yes.
It was like, well, like, you were actually still interested. It was so weird. Yeah. Like, you were still interested? Like, oh my God, like, how weird are you? It's like, oh my God, you're a fucking lunatic. You have no ability. And the fact that he kept being like, oh, that was kind of an accidental, like, thing that happened. Like, that was an incident. I think he kept calling it an incident that he regretted. I'm like, it wasn't one time. Like, you didn't, like, accidentally kiss her at a bar. You didn't accidentally message her or, like, have, like, one text off. I don't know if that's even, like, a phrase. You know, with her. Like, one, like, meet up, rendezvous, but over message with her. this was going on for 6 months. And she said it herself. She's like, I tried to leave and Amina would keep me there.
Yeah.
And he was like,
this
yeah,
is
it's
somewhere
fucked up.
It is in a lot of ways, at a lot of points. And it got worse and worse as it went on.
The Messiah?
Oh, yeah. Where was that coming? I wrote that down.
It was in episode 5. And apparently he said that Amina was like a messiah for, I don't know if it was queer people or queer women. I can't remember the exact phrase, but it was definitely like Amina was, as he saw it, a messiah for a subsection of the queer community in the Middle
Middle
East.
Syrian lesbians. I think that's what he said.
Yeah. I think
he said he was the Messiah for Syrian lesbians, which, okay, so I want to talk about me for a second.
Oh, yeah, that makes sense for a white man who likes creative writing.
Let's bring the conversation around to talk about me for a second. I do like creative writing. And one of the things he said when asked why all this lesbian erotica was, he said, I like the challenge. And I'm going to say this. I also like a challenge. I like a writing challenge. I like all kinds of challenges. But, and this is something that was drilled into me in all of my writing classes, whether it was writing fiction or poetry or nonfiction, like any type of writing, is you need to have some type of authenticity to your voice. And you also, I got taught lessons about cultural appropriation and writing.
They spoke about that, didn't they?
Yes.
Orientalism,
yeah. And particularly about writing from the perspective of voices from cultures with less power than your own. Right? Like in America, it's this whole thing, and this was touched on.
As a white man in America, you're like, well, I'm fucked. Who can I write about?
Yes. This comes up because it happens, because people do, right? Like people write, men write from the perspective of women, and that's sometimes very controversial, or white people write from the perspective of people of color, and that is also controversial and debatable about whether that should be done or shouldn't be done. And I personally have always erred on the side of not doing that, because the odds of you screwing that up or doing something perceived of as appropriation or just offending whomever, let alone what he did, which was actually just talking about Sandra, talking about this one person, let alone the damage he did to people like Danny and his community in Syria. But the amount of damage that this man did and the lack of any sort of remorse.
It wasn't even the remorse that shook me. It was the fact that he didn't see it. This scammer, the impact of his scam on people, the fact that it wasn't, say with Scamanda.
Yeah.
It was like, okay, I see that I've had an impact on these people. I see that, okay, if I did this, then maybe other people will look for, GoFundMes or look for charitable donations, and people will question whether you've actually got cancer or whatever. It felt a little bit like she was apologizing because she wanted people to feel sorry for her, and she was very good at like putting on a show. But it also felt like she knew she had done wrong. She just didn't care.
Right.
It actually feels like here, he doesn't think he has done any wrong. The one person it seems like he thinks he's done wrong to is Sandra.
But
he doesn't seem to think he has, and it's in there with him saying that Amina was the Messiah for lesbians in Syria. He doesn't seem to think that. And yet in episode 6, when we hear that Danny gets pulled up by the police or whatever they're called in Syria.
Yeah.
When he's put in prison, I'm like, what if then a post is released to say Danny's in prison? Is anyone going to believe them?
That's the thing.
Will there be traction? Yeah. And the fact is, there won't be, the fact is that story's been played already. And like, as much as we don't want to believe, we get desensitized to that, we do. And he played the card. And as they said, it was written. The reason the West added up was because it was written for the West, by the West. And it was so interesting to hear that. I until that was said, I was like, oh, wow. That's why the Western media liked it, because it was kind of salacious, or like it was comprehensible in how it was written, because we find it so hard to comprehend that anyone else lives in a different society, in a different structure, in a different belief system, that we feel like everything about the system has to be wrong. We don't feel like and I think Danny touched on this, like that, you know, it's not necessarily the whole system that's wrong. They might enjoy living in their system, but they want to be accepted for who they are in the society they lived in.
There's a lot to unpack here. I want to touch on a couple things just to maybe close out the issue of sort of authenticity and the creative writing thing. Like, the one example I wanted to mention was Uncle Tom's Cabin. Do you know Uncle Tom's Cabin? Is that something that was known in? Okay, so Uncle Tom's Cabin was written by a white woman.
Well, you can't say, was it known in Ireland? Like, I'm not like the source of all things that are known in Ireland. I am from Ireland.
So Uncle Tom's Cabin was a sort of pivotal anti-slavery novel. And it was written by Harriet Beecher Stowe, who is a white woman. And that book is responsible for a lot of stereotypes about Black people in that era. It was written in the pre-Civil War. That's also from such a different time. Like that, I'm bringing it up because that's an example of a book that has a very complicated legacy. But I think there are people who would defend it and say that this brought attention to the plight of slaves in America. And it did, in some ways, some good. It did a lot of bad, but it also did some good. I feel like this guy here in this story, in his heart of hearts, feels like he did more good than bad. I don't know how much bad he really feels accountable for, but I think from what we heard, he overwhelmingly seems to think that he was a force for good. And there's nothing to apologize for. And yes, he maybe hurt some people, but what I liked about the podcast was I thought it very well laid out the sort of legacy of destruction that he did. And one person we haven't talked about is Jelena, Croatian. Shout out to a Croatian person, whose pictures he used as Amina. And this poor woman had to go on TV to defend herself and say that this is me. I'm not Amina. These are pictures of me. And just kind of exposing.
But not only that, but she had been through like horrendous trauma of herself in her own life.
Yeah. Yeah. And this is part of the trail of destruction that this guy left. And we never heard about any sort of apology to her. And maybe there was, but I'm going to guess there wasn't. But the other thing is that story, and that was in episode 4. And this was in other episodes too, but just kind of pointed out the sort of real shoddy journalism that was going on throughout this period. And there was a note, I think it was near the end of the whole podcast, about how people don't rigorously check stories that sort of align with their own personal biases. So if a story is saying something that you think to be true, you're going to investigate it less hard, and you're more likely to report something that isn't true that way. And that's one of the things that happened here is people wanted this story to be true. People found it sympathetic, and so they didn't push hard enough. And these people who pretended to have in-person interviews with Amina when they really didn't. I mean, The Guardian was one that was called out here, but that wasn't the only one, but that was called out. It's an easy one to get very worked up over.
Yeah, and yet I feel like it's one that, I mean, this happened, when was our time machine? This happened in 2011?
2011, yeah. And this happened in 2011. All of these regimes were falling around the Arab world, but the Assad regime didn't, right? It didn't fall until 2024. And granted, this is one piece of that broader puzzle, but there was revolution happening all over this part of the world. I don't know. It's one of those things that's so frustrating. Like this guy is like, I'm drawing attention to an important cause of a marginalized people, a people who are being persecuted, where it is illegal to be homosexual, where these people do not necessarily have voices or safety or security being themselves in this country. And yet he's still taking their voice. He's still taking their voice away from them in the sort of like guise of defending them. That's a different level of hypocrisy.
Yeah, and that's the thing. You're not allowing other people to speak. You're speaking for them. I think there's a difference in saying, you know, reading up about different cultures and different minorities and saying, I understand. Like I've read about, like, I'm trying to understand your perspective. There's another aspect of like, but I'm going to speak for you because I'm going to help you because you can't fucking help yourself. Right. It's like kind of akin to the whole, I don't know if it was like this at all growing up for you, but in Ireland, let's just see how this translates, Jeff. If it translates really badly, please tell me. In Ireland, every Lent, we got, for non-Catholics, Christians, I don't know, Catholics,
pretty Catholic,
we got a Trócaire box. Trócaire means charity in Irish. And so we got like this cardboard box that we would put somewhere in the kitchen, or other houses would do it differently, and you put your coins in it. So for the 40 days of Lent, you'd be putting your coins away, and it's a way of raising money to donate to certain charities. So you'd be giving this to the school, and the school would collect it all, give it to the church, and the church would give it to Trócaire, which is the charity, and Trócaire would give it to wherever. But what would be on the box would be faces of hungry black children in Africa. Okay. And it was the whole thing of, you don't finish your meal, there's people in Africa starving. This whole like rhetoric, and this whole thing of, we need to give our food, we need to give our clothes that we don't want anymore to these people, as opposed to, how about there's like seeds and tools and education. So instead of giving the book or the teacher, which might help to spawn like educators or like build up people to understand things themselves, to be able to grow. It's like, give them the one piece of bread that will feed them for today. And it was that whole thing. And I feel like that was like the same thing here. It's like, I'm going to speak for you because you can't speak for yourself. Yes. I'm not going to help give you a platform to raise you up to speak for yourself. What I'm going to do is I'm going to research, and I'm knowledgeable because I'm a white man in Georgia who has gone to college because I am so privileged, and I am going to pretend to be you, lesbian woman in Syria, and then I'm going to act as you on the internet. But I'm also, I'm not going to stop there. I'm also going to pretend to be you and have all these intimate conversations with people around the internet, as Danny put it, which is what I was thinking the whole way through, to jerk off as I'm like messaging someone who, funny enough, ended up being your one who was pretending to be a woman who was also a man in Edinburgh, which, that was like, I was just like, two white men with no moral compass and like too much time and like no ability to, I don't know, ask your wife for something new. I don't understand it. It's just baffling to me. Like, you don't like it, you go elsewhere in a respectful manner. You don't, I don't know.
Well, and it seemed like there was a degree to which this was a political cause for him, but there's also a big part of this just seemed like it was sort of for him to get off. And then there was a part of it that just seemed like it was for sport. Like, it was 100%. just like he just wanted to see what he could do and what he could get away with.
Why was it a gay woman? Because I wanted a challenge. Yeah. And even, okay, look, hands up. I'm actually not the best person to be asked what my talents are, because I find it very difficult to talk about anything that I might be semi-good at. I find it very uncomfortable. I will put my hand up so high in the air for something I'm really bad at, and that is writing. Terrible at it. But I would imagine that maybe not the hardest thing to write about would be sex, because like people are like easily like, I don't know, maybe this is not a conversation we need to get into, but like that would be my assumption anyway. Although maybe like writing about it is harder than like...
It's actually pretty hard. Yeah.
Okay. Well,
sort
that's
of
fair.
notoriously hard to write. Like there's an annual award for the worst sex in fiction every year, and it's often like pretty prominent authors.
I feel like, I don't know, it just feels like an easy gap. But then maybe for him, he's like, oh, I even tricked another lesbian. And I'm just like, oh, you're such a gross man. Like the fact that he's even like chuffed about this is like, do you not see how gross you are? And dare I say it, I judge his wife for staying with him through it.
Okay.
I'm sorry.
No,
I'm sorry. Because she's like, he's a kind man? Is he in his heart? Is he maybe on the outside? Is he in his heart? Would you do that? You're not going to say yes, even if you would. I fucking guarantee you my husband wouldn't do that. He also definitely cannot do creative writing. I would imagine. Unless he's been hiding it from me all these years. But like...
Who is he online? Is
oh,
he
indeed. Is he actually...
Who is he pretending to be? I want to talk for a second. I want to pivot for a second and talk about someone we haven't brought up, is Liz Henry. So Liz Henry was a blogger. She was interviewed throughout this.
The San Francisco blogger.
She was, yeah.
I just have her down as Liz. So I just need to clarify. Yeah.
Well, I want to talk about a different Liz later on, but I want to talk about Liz Henry for a second. So what I really appreciated, so we heard this from Danny, we heard this from Sandra, like we heard this from the host, Samira, as well, but like one of the specific things that Liz brought to this story. So Liz was investigating the Amina case, but also the Paula Brooks, which was the guy from Ohio, the other straight white man. And one of the things that Liz did was, part of her investigation into Paula Brooks was, part of Paula Brooks' deal was Paula Brooks said that she was deaf, and that everyone communicated with her by talking to her father, who was called the Major. And Liz was like, and this came up before this became a plot point, but Liz acknowledged that she was in a wheelchair. She is part of the disabled community. And she was like, okay, and I know those are two different things, being in a wheelchair and being deaf, but she was able to call out, like, in the deaf community, that's not a thing anyone would do, right? Like, there are so many assistive technologies. There's so many other ways to communicate with people. You would not have your father be your voice.
Your mouthpiece, yeah.
Yeah. And I just I appreciated Liz was also realizing that her group had this person who was infiltrating them. Like they had a mole. So like there was some really good, I thought, journalism here, right? Danny also had some good moments of just calling out things that's like, this isn't right. Like even like the name Amina, like the name Amina Arraf was called out as, as like, this is not, what is it? It means old-fashioned. It's an old-fashioned name that means trustworthy
storyteller.
Fortune teller, yeah. Yeah. I did also talk about a different Liz Flock, our friend of the show. Liz Flock was mentioned by Andy Carvin, the NPR reporter, who in episode 4, he was talking about all the different people who were investigating the story kind of concurrently. And so I went, so we talked to Liz Flock a long time ago. She was the person behind Blind Plea, and she did an interview with us for our show. That's in our archives. If you go to the Wikipedia page for, I think it's the Gay Girl in Damascus Wikipedia page, or it's the one about Amina Arraf. There's one Wikipedia page about this whole story. 3 or 4 of the citations on that page are Liz Flock stories from, I think, the Washington Post is where she was writing at the time. So she was one of the more prominent reporters who was researching this and figuring out what was going on and reporting on it as untrue. But in our preview episode, we were making references to how we knew this story and how we talked about this story. And that was really bugging me because I couldn't place it. I couldn't figure out where that was. And then I did. And we never actually talked about it on this show. I went back and listened to our interview with Liz Flock. We didn't talk about it with Liz. Do you know where we heard about this?
Was it on Blind Plea?
No, didn't come up in Blind Plea.
Where did we hear about it?
It was on an episode of This American Life that we did not cover for this show, but you and I listened to it. It was episode 855.
And Liz Flock was on it.
It's called That's a Weird Thing to Lie About. And one of the segments was Liz Flock telling this story, the gay girl in Damascus story, and about her investigation into it. Yes.
But honestly, Jeff, I learned so much. I knew Amina wasn't real. And I knew it was someone in America, and I had a feeling it was a man because,
Sure.
But there was so much in this, and maybe that's the sign of such a good such a good podcast. It was such a good series.
I just want to mention it because I think we love Liz, and she's fantastic, and
we love Liz.
But that was I don't know, 15-minute version of this story rather than a 3.5 hour version of this story. So that's episode 855 of This American Life, which is available for free on This American Life, their website. Yeah, I mean, she wasn't interviewed in this podcast, but she was name checked in this podcast.
I want to pivot back a little bit to there's two people I feel like we haven't spoken about that much. I just want to make sure that we really give them enough time. I want to talk about Sandra, and I also want to talk about Samira, because I feel like both of them were huge parts of this whole story. Let me start first with Sandra. Mm-hmm. What I found interesting was Sandra was pivotal. Sandra's story ran through the entire podcast. Danny came in and out, but Sandra ran the entire way through, and Sandra seemed to be he who can't be named's Achilles. It was the one thing that broke him in the interview. What was the Turkish journalist's name? Did you write that down? She's like, I wake up in the morning and I have my cigarette on the balcony with
Coker.
my tablet.
Iram.
Okay. Iram Coker, and we heard from her that when she was interviewing he who can't be named, seemed totally grand until the mention of Sandra, and then it was he broke. That was the emotion. That's when he's kind of fidgety. That's when he's, that's the Achilles. He's looking around looking for Britta, presumably because the intimacy of the relationship. Apparently she didn't know about the blog and didn't know, I'd say, about the fact that he was, writing poems about nipples and shit to Sandra and having a whole relationship. Sorry, I just said nipples to you. What's interesting is that, so that's around episode 5, but then in episode 6, what's so interesting is we come back to her facing him, and really when she faces him, he's not winning. No. Because it's the age old, he's a fucking coward behind the keyboard. She's like, well, and I thought it was nearly powerful when she said, he didn't know me. Because if he knew me well enough, he'd know that this is what I would do. The emotion went from her as soon as she saw him, and she was like, oh, that's it? This is what has been taking my emotions for this long? Are you joking? I'm not giving you any emotions anymore. And she's like, well, this, that, the other. And then Britta comes up and she's like, well, he didn't expect his two worlds to collide, but here they are. I'm not moving. This is happening. And I don't know, it felt to me like the end we see or we hear Sandra winning, and we hear then of her life after and how she's gone on to such prominence. And then we hear Danny's life after, and we hear that he's gone on to live a fantastic life, albeit outside of Syria. And that wasn't great, that he had to become, as he called, he had to become a refugee, he had to leave.
Yeah.
But he's now very happy, whatever. I don't know. I thought that was a nice rounded way of saying it. Of kind of telling their stories.
Yeah, I agree with that. Yeah, one thing that can you see that picture?
Yeah.
So that's Sandra in the yellow, and that's Samira. So that's them getting together.
Oh my God! Oh, that fills me with joy.
It's such a happy picture. We'll share this on Instagram, but this is on I'm getting this from the CBC website about the podcast. And Sandra's story is so heartbreaking and so tragic, but it does seem like she emerged Obviously she's the stronger person, the better person. The Danny too, right? Like these two people who put up with so much. And I loved hearing her. I mean, the fact that she went and faced him. And
do you think you'd say tragic?
Tragic's maybe not the right word. It's heartbreaking.
You got lots of words in that brain, Jeff. Take a minute. Pick a word.
I mean, I stand by heartbreaking.
Pivotal. Really heartbreaking. Maybe.
I mean, what he
poignant.
did to her. Oh,
it
yeah,
was.
Sure.
It was. I feel like so. I've looked at a lot of reviews. I'm going to smatter this in, not at the end, because I have something else to discuss before we end up. A lot of the reviews I heard were, I think maybe 2 or 3 of the ones I saw were, I've listened. I'm writing this review 4, 5, 6 months after I've listened because I keep thinking about it. And I found that interesting because we often say that when we're recording, but sure, we've just listened. So like,
yeah, it's fresh.
Then we do like 100 episodes. Like, what do you remember? And you're like, I don't know. But like, it's interesting that people would say that, like they'd write a review like that time at that time.
Yeah, it is.
I think that's kind of very remarkable, and it kind of says a lot about the podcast itself. I don't know if I would say tragic myself. I don't know if I would say heartbreaking.
I think this period.
I think I would say it was so moving to hear Sandra to allow herself, after being put through what she was put through, to be so open, so honest, and so raw in such a public way. And to really trust Samira, I think, and CBC, that can't have been easy, because to trust anyone after this must have been extremely hard. In fact, even trusting Andy, when they first started to chat, the fact that she started to trust him and that the seeds of doubt, I found that fascinating, because all of a sudden she was like, I just knew I could trust him. Well, we haven't even spoken about Andy that much, but
no. But I think it's interesting what you're saying, because I think it's important to call out that we've talked about this with other shows about, what does it mean to do, years later, a podcast about the crime that's at the center of this true crime podcast. And here she is, this moment in her life that understandably she may want to put behind her. She may want to move on, never talk about this again, never admit how maybe vulnerable she made herself in that moment, maybe how naive she was. And yet she does. And she makes herself very available to this podcast. And that's why I feel like it's a story. Like, her arc in this story is just remarkable. And
I think that's why I would say I don't think your words are correct, because she's taken control. It's not heartbreaking. It's actually pretty inspiring, because someone else took control for a while when she was in a vulnerable position. And what she has done, and what she did throughout the podcast, is she allowed maybe someone else to be in control of her decisions. And she says that kind of towards the end, when she was having doubts, she would allow Amina to kind of persuade her or whatever. But then towards the end, she took control. She decided, no, I'm going to face this head on. And now at the end, we see that she's in control. And so I don't see it necessarily as heartbreaking. I see it as kind of like a revolution in itself. Like, this is like, a flower going in and like winning over. Like, that was like see how bad I would be at writing. I said a flower going in and winning over. Like, how many metaphors were mixed up there? Like, a flower going in and winning over. Like, none of that makes sense. Like, I know you know what I meant, but none of that makes sense.
I do know what you meant. And I want to be clear. I think this is a story of
triumph,
heartbreak, but ultimately a story of triumph. Yes. I think that's ultimately what it is. But I think in it, there is tragedy and sadness and manipulation and cruelty. And she is at the center of that. And she is horribly treated, right? But yes, in the end, ultimately, yes, it's a story of triumph. I think we're on the same page there.
In a way, is it a Disney movie that they said that they hated? Because it's like the awful and then the good. No? We're just going to not say that? Okay.
No.
Very last thing I want to discuss is Samira, because in the episode 1, there was one particular line I really liked, which was that she said she was my unicorn. Samira really felt that Amina was this person to look up to. You know, she's Syrian. She's got this Middle Eastern vibe that Samira really like saw in herself. She was also a lesbian, and she felt like that there was this connection, and she was revolting. And she revolting sounds that she was disgusting. She was standing up and against maybe the society. Yeah, the society which is not accepting of her. And it was just, I felt that line was so empowering. And what was so, another line I wrote down just from episode 5 was Samira's line, my gay Syrian unicorn was actually a white man from Georgia. And fuck, like, what a pivot. Like, what a pivot to being like, I had, like, my Syrian unicorn. Like, I do not, by the way, if you're going to ask, do I? But have you ever had, like, this person as an adult? Because, like, you know, as a child, you've so many of them, I think, who you've had on this pedestal and you feel like is, like, you feel like is this person, and then you realize they're actually a piece of shit. Yeah,
I feel like the world is full of those. It's kind of more surprising when someone turns out to not be a piece of shit, really. I feel like we're more surprised when we find out someone is actually a really good person, despite us just thinking they were a good person.
Do you reckon then this is like a story of the 2011s and not a story of the now? Because the now is just fucked, isn't it, really?
Yeah, I mean...
like...
Now it's sort of, in the 2020s, I feel like the amount of sort of, it's inescapable how everyone is terrible for one reason or another. And it's just a matter of like when you're going to find out what's this person's thing. And every time you want to have some type of person to look up to or admire or respect or whatever adjective you want, then you're going to, you know, the next day or the next hour, you're going to find out actually this person is disgusting in this way. In the end, would you recommend this podcast?
Oh my God. Like, yeah, 100% might be up there. Yeah. Which I find interesting because I knew I want to speak to someone who didn't know.
Yeah. That honestly was hard because, we talked about this in the preview. We knew where this was going. And in the preview, none of this was really given away. Like, it was alluded to that obviously something was wrong, but compared to other podcasts, like the actual kind of truth of the story was hidden for a while. And
that's one thing we didn't discuss, because the name is called Gay Girl Gone and it says she's abducted. Takes a bit for her to get abducted, and then it's like, oh, not even her, not even a woman, she's not even in Syria, she's not even gay. Like, Jesus Christ. There's also someone else who's reporting on her who's not even a woman, not even gay.
It's hard, because that twist was spoiled for us before we listened to this. I don't feel like I can speak to how effective it was. I agree. I would love to talk to someone who came into this cold, didn't know the story.
On it. Be the person to tell us how you felt if you came into this podcast cold. You didn't know about it. Like, how did you feel? Were you shocked? Were you surprised? Did you like how they laid it out? Or did we miss something? Was there anything that, you know, because we came in knowing that Amina wasn't in fact Amina, did we miss anything? Did we overlook anything? Tell us. Tell us what we missed.
Next time, D, what does the name George Hodel mean to you? Does it ring a bell?
Let me think. I can say...
Don't Google it. Don't Google it.
Whack. I could say nada. I can say zilch. Or I
Okay.
could say nothing.
Let me ask you about a different name. Black Dahlia.
Oh.
Now does it ring a bell? Black Dahlia is one of the most famous unsolved true crime cases in history, and it was one that I don't know a whole lot about. I know you do. I don't. So I thought it was time that I learned a little something about the Black Dahlia case.
You used the word, Jeff.
What word?
Unsolved.
George Hodel is one of the main suspects in the Black Dahlia murder from 1947. And I've had a podcast that's a little older. It's from 2019. And this one is by his great-granddaughters. And there are interviews, obviously they speak, as well as with other members of the family, investigating whether he committed the Black Dahlia murder. This is a podcast called Root of Evil. It was also turned into a fictionalized version of the story. But again, this podcast is from 2019. It's called Root of Evil. It's about the Black Dahlia, hosted by the great-granddaughters of the main suspect in the case. That's on the next So Much Crime.
So little time.
So Much Crime, So Little Time is a production of Mind Glove Media. The executive producer is Paxton Caloriso. Our associate producer is Blythe Ty. Our theme music was composed by Vyacheslav Starostin. If you haven't done it yet, please subscribe to this show on your podcast app. And don't forget to give us a 5-star rating and a review. Even better, tell your friends. To join the discussion, look for us on social media. Check out the show notes for all the links. Thanks for listening.
Jeff, sometimes I do things and I just don't understand why I do them.